Good morning everyone. In this video I'm going to be analysing the live price action for EU and DXY to see what opportunities are available today. You're going to see my strategy and my analysis, so if you're interested in those then please stick around. Right, we're starting off here on the daily. We've got EU on the top, DXY on the bottom. Now just a quick announcement, it is a bank holiday today in the UK. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect price in the London session, right, in the morning. Of course, it's one of those bank holidays where it's just the UK. The rest of Europe is open. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully there's still enough volatility despite the bank holiday. So back to the daily. What can we see? Well, we can see Friday's candle closed out bullish, right? Clearly, we reached way up into this premium now. We're finally within the premium of this leg. We mitigated somewhat because this whole thing obviously is an order block. So we've mitigated most of the order block. There is still some left of the imbalance, and the last candle, the last up candle of this order block is still available. So I've just highlighted that so we can see that clearly. We closed as a kind of high test because obviously we've taken so much buy side liquidity above previous highs and we're into this imbalance. So the bullish run may not be over yet, of course. We haven't exactly gone to the extreme. However, this may be enough. We've obviously closed out rejecting this area. So we're in an interesting place now in the premium where we need to have our wits about us and be aware of price and what it may do, right? So naturally, I imagine we should seek out some sell side liquidity, but we'll see that on a lower time frame. Inversely, on DXY, we closed out as a low test deep into this premium. I've highlighted the order block, which we didn't quite mitigate. We have our previous daily and weekly highs and lows, which are yet to be mitigated on either EU or DXY. This morning, we're just in this small range of a doji, again, because it may be a bank holiday. So without going into too much detail on the daily, let's go down to the 4 hour and see what that shows. So onto the 4 hour, just a more detailed picture of this pullback now. You can see we had this higher low and higher high. I would probably just call this entire thing the 4 hour leg, the internal leg to this leg. We're clearly in the premium now, but you can see we still have more imbalance to fill. And though we have this daily order block here, you can see the 4 hour order block is way up here at the top. So we may reach all the way up into this 0.085 area to mitigate this. That would be a good target and a good 4 hour POI, filling that entire imbalance. So that's a good target and draw for me. I still believe for this to be a possible draw. So I'll write that in. So these order blocks and imbalances are higher time frame possible draws on price. So we have our nice bullish internal leg here. We do have this imbalance below on the 4 hour. Just mark that in so we can see how that looks on a lower time frame. There's a few other small imbalances below. We'll see what price does, but I thought I'd mark out this immediate one here that's closest to price. Now, of course, on the 4 hour, we're yet to show any breakdown to say that this bullish internal movement is finished yet. So we're still in the premium of it. We can look for shorts if needed after taking all this buy side liquidity and mitigating some of these areas. However, I don't think this pullback's over just yet. We are yet to see that structure shift on the 4 hour to continue with that higher time frame trend. So same position as before in my opinion. Now if we go over to DXY, same leg, except you can see where we made that SMT divergence, sweeping that buy side liquidity. Now we've broken down, creating this new leg. We also have the same 4 hour POI here at the extreme. So good target again on the 4 hour for us to go and mitigate that as well. Now we do have an imbalance above the previous daily high, which is in a slightly different place in comparison to this. So there may be some divergences, but we have an order block here and an imbalance. So on DXY, this may be a good point of a pullback on the 4 hour, just to note here as a POI. Now, because they are diverged, you never know, we may see a pullback into this imbalance or POI here at the same time as this POI. So I'm just drawing these out as areas of confluences so that you can see them clearly on the screen as I'm talking about them. As we did close out as this low test, and obviously this is the same thing, right? Because we've had this bearish pullback, so on the higher time frame, all of this is the high test candle wick price does look like it's mitigated some sell side liquidity, and you can see we're making this overnight corrective sort of pullback towards a buy side liquidity or POY. And the same is obviously happening here on EU, which is why we've highlighted these areas, and we've got this previous daily high buy side liquidity coincidentally right where this imbalance is. So it is possible resistance and possible support around this area. So let's go down to the 1 hour and see what that shows us. Onto the 1 hour, we have this clear bullish leg for me. Why is this the bullish leg? Well, we mitigated the POY area down here, and then we made a new higher high. Okay, so this area mitigated a POY and then broke above this previous 1 hour high and created a new high. So that for me is our bullish leg. We're currently in the premium of that leg and the premium of the external leg as well. So that 4 hour POY that I pointed out is obviously still in a premium of this leg. So it may or may not provide that support we need to continue going higher, but we'll see what price does. Again, right, the price itself, the price action and the structure will dictate the biases and how we trade. Now, something to note, of course, is that we have these imbalances down here in the discount. So they're good imbalances with POY 1 hour order block behind them at the origin of the move. So I do think these are good POYs to keep an eye on. If price needs to come down to a discount, this area here looks really good for some support. Now it also lines up with the 4 hour POY and order block with imbalance above the previous daily high that is on DXY. So they aren't in sync. Of course, we'd probably reach that long before we reach this area here on EU. They're very far apart and not in sync. So I probably wouldn't expect us to reach down into this discount at the same time and mitigate these areas. So again, we'll keep an eye on that. However, price may pull back and take more buy side liquidity here if we do come down to this area and cause divergence. What to expect is that as these are so out of sync, if we do pull back to a discount on EU, we may take a buy side liquidity high such as this previous weekly high or some highs up in these areas, causing divergence as well, right, giving us another confluence to trade from this area. However, I think if the sync happens around this area here with one of the other smaller imbalances and we get into this area, then I think that's also fine as a confluence to continue from, as long as the lower time frame structure gives us that indication to trade long from this internal premium here. So I hope that's not too confusing when I'm talking about the sync between EU and DXY. So I don't think there's loads to discuss on the 1 hour, which is probably why I got sucked into talking about future scenarios. The main important thing is that we have this 1 hour bullish leg. We're obviously keeping an eye on this 4 hour imbalance here, the first imbalance anyway. We have our sell side liquidity below the previous daily lows as well. And we have this discount here. So it's just something to keep an eye on. And then obviously on DXY, we have our leg from about here to here because this swept that previous high and broke down, making a lower low here. So this will be our 1 hour leg premium. So we're just going to keep an eye on these confluences on the buy side liquidity above this previous daily high, and again on the confluences here. So price is pulling back rather correctively, though the market isn't open yet, and this is that overnight low volatility. So we are reliant on the lower time frame to see where our bias is. However, for me, with this bullish leg, it would still be nice to go long. We have taken buy side liquidity, so depending on how price breaks down, we could also go short. But with these confluences here and here, I wouldn't want to go short once we've mitigated those, right? So I don't want to trade into a POI and into this resistance here if we've already mitigated it. So let's go down to the M15 and see if there's any opportunities available for today. So as mentioned on the higher time frames, obviously we're in a premium, which would be a good place for sales after taking, you know, buy side liquidity, mitigating somewhat of the higher time frame imbalances. But also I see the possibilities with this support and this resistance around this area that we may actually be able to have buys from this area as well. So a bit of a mixed picture in that sense. However, on the M15, we can see here we have created this sideways overnight buy side and sell side liquidity with this Asia range. Okay, now we've come into Frankfurt and now the London Open, and you can see the price isn't really doing what it usually would. Even if we just go back a day, we can see how price usually moves. Price may get that momentum soon, but we can see price is usually looking to take one side of buy side or sell side liquidity. Currently we're moving quite slowly. Now the good thing is we still have these points, right? So price can use these liquidity areas to head for the buy side or sell side liquidity on either side, to head for that discount or to continue our trend. So I think let's discuss the scenario first that I think is the most high probability using this support and using this built up liquidity. I think it would be good if price were to break down from this area, come into this 4-hour POI, lower time frame POI I guess as well. We take out the sell side liquidity from this Asia range. We've got more sell side liquidity on the M15 here with this low. Now that would be some nice internal liquidity swept. As we know, once we take one side of Asia, we usually head for the other. So to see the break of structure from some momentum in this area would be great. So break of structure above a high created as we're breaking down, and then now we can have our pullback back to our possible imbalance and order block in this area here to set our order from, and then we can trade to the other side of Asia and, you know, possibly up towards that week high, because it would be a week high if we reject this area on the 1 hour and start breaking structure. So we have sort of inducement here with this low and this low, sell side liquidity sponsorship. So I can draw out the sell side liquidity we would be taking from here. So we'd have a high time frame POI, sell side liquidity from Asia and this previous low here. We'd have our breaker structure around this area here. We would have our possible inducement from our pullback here, and then our imbalance and order block on the M15 to set our order from and go long. Stop loss just below the low, and then we can target to the high of Asia. I target 3% or the week high, wherever you want to target. So I think this is a good move here with this sell side liquidity sponsorship, and we should have the buy side liquidity sponsorship from the previous daily high here on DXY to possibly head down. Now we would have the POI above as a draw-on price. Obviously we'd already be in the imbalance, so price may draw higher. We don't know how that will affect this area or not, but we'd have some buy side liquidity on side. We'd have some sell side liquidity from these lows here, and then breaker structure, pull back, go long from there. Now we are in a premium, so that would be another negative there, so we have to be aware of that. But that's why it's important for us to wait for this internal breaker structure, some momentum from this area, so price would be showing possible intention for it to break and go higher. Price could quite easily from this area take this high here. That would be another negative if we do take the buy side liquidity above Asia before pulling back, because then that may sponsor some move for a deeper pullback depending on what happens here on DXY. So those are the negatives to be aware of, and I hope that's clear, and I hope this example is clear. So on the opposing side, of course, we could have the bearish scenario. Price could quite easily come up here, take out this high, right, this Asia buy side liquidity, and then break down internally, break a structure at this area here, and then we could get the same type of pullback up into our order block and imbalance, and trade down into this area or even further down to the discount POIs on a higher time frame, which would be a drawn price. So we'd have our breaker structure around this area here. We would have our buy side liquidity taken from here. We are in a premium, of course, as well, which is on our side. And yesterday, well, Friday, you could say we've mitigated some high time frame buy side liquidity, so it's on our side. We'd have our order block here to set our sell, stop loss just above the high, and you can aim for wherever. So this would be a nice drawn price, but the danger would be if price has mitigated this first, then of course you'll be trading against everything that I said in the previous example. So it'd be best if we did take this high here and broke down internally without taking the opposite side of Asia and maybe these lows first, just as I said with the other example. So I'd prefer the internal breakdown and pull back before this sell side liquidity is taken, and this POY is mitigated. What that may look like on DXY, of course, would be DXY coming down here, taking this sort of sell side liquidity trend line, maybe this low here, and then going up to head for its POY and previous daily high, which are good draws on price. So I think this is very sensible, of course, to head towards discount. This does make sense as long as I would say the trade forms in this way, mitigating a bit of our risk. Of course, we could come up higher and it may take out this high here, but I think they're both fairly sensible options. I do probably like the buy option more, even though we're in that premium. So I hope that was clear. I hope you gained value from that. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.